All right. Um, Hi everyone. This is Vaibhavi. You can call me VB as well. Super excited to be here amongst a lot of known friends and the people who are watching. First of all, wish you a very happy Diwali to the everyone who is celebrating. I'm super excited to be speaking on my favorite topic in this festival day. So warm welcome. Thank you so much for joining. Today, I'm going to take you through a very interesting topic, which is building diverse, equal, and inclusive communities. I saw a couple of series of talks before this one, and I saw that how everyone is mentioning to be inclusive, and there's been great presentations from people who are running different communities across Southeast Asia. So I hope I can bring you some good insights from my presentation as well. So this is about like whether it's startup or an enterprise or a multinational company. You would see that these days there's an increased focus on diversity because it brings a lot of benefits like increased collaboration, harmony, retention rate, and a lot of things. So I'm going to talk about this topic a little bit more on the developer relation context, and see that what are some things that we can do about it. So, a quick introduction of myself. As I mentioned, I work at Gojek as a program manager in engineering and data. Um, Apart from running the programs for the engineering and data team, I'm also putting together a diversity, equity, and inclusion program for teams at Gojek, which I'm extremely passionate about. I previously worked at Google in the developer relations team for about 4 years in India and Singapore. So that kind of brings me the love of DevRel, as I would say. And yeah, I work with the Global Shapers community in Singapore on social impact projects in my free time. And I dance my way out in the Kathak dance form, which is an Indian traditional dance form. So I thought I'll just share a few things about me so uh, you know who I am and you can relate with things in a better way. So let's start with the agenda for today. So we will start with sharing what is diversity, equity, and inclusion. What are the current challenges? We'll go into understanding few challenges. And after that, I'll help to put this into the context of DevRel on why do we need to focus on this as the developer relations. And after that, I want to leave you with 5 things you could do to make your communities diverse, equal, and inclusive. And lastly, I'll talk about a few initiatives that I have personally come across and has helped me a lot to practice PEI, as we say. So that's going to be like the agenda for today. So let's start with what is diversity, equity, and inclusion. I would have probably asked people to raise hands to ask, like, how many of you know the definitions and how many people of you know the differences. But given the fact, the era we are all in, the virtual conference, I'll just share my point of view on definitions here, and I've left my Twitter handle, so feel free to engage there or over the YouTube chat on what are your thoughts, because there's no single definitions of these things. It's all coming from people's experiences, and frankly speaking, from the time that I became interested in this topic and from the time that I'm building a program at Gojek on DEI, my definitions have also evolved by talking with people, mentors, and experts around the industry. So, diversity is basically ensuring that whatever communities or uh, groups that we are serving has a diverse representation, which is gender, background, culture, capability. So that is diversity. That is like ensuring that we have diverse people. In inclusion is basically making sure to provide them an environment where they could not only fit in, but rather they could thrive, they could grow, they feel confident about raising questions, they feel confident about basically working with people around. So inclusion is basically creating that environment for everyone. And equity is related to the fairness. So we all understand that not everyone comes from the same background, not everyone comes from the same country, the languages they speak. So there are gaps that we see in uh, people being on the same page, right? So equity is how do we help people who are not yet at the bar reach the bar by giving them more support, more encouragement, and more initiatives that we could bring it to them. So ultimately, everyone in the organization, community, or conference feels empowered to participate, engage, and change things. So equity is related to treating everyone equally and helping the people who needs additional support to kind of reach the bar. So I believe now the definitions are clear to you. The next up is what are the challenges in this space? Now you know the definitions, and I would highly encourage that while you are listening to my talk, just back in your mind, think about the examples of people you have seen around you, which might be from underrepresented groups or females, which is an underrepresented group with regards to gender diversity, right? So think about friends and family and colleagues and community people around you while I'm delivering this talk, so you will be able to make the most out of it. So what are the challenges? Few challenges that I have mentioned in here is the modesty norms. A lot of time we as women are taught to be humble and modest, and that kind of refrains us from raising questions, from speaking out our mind. Backlash effects. Sometimes women will judge other women to basically raise the question or point an opinion, kind of a thing. So that is like a backlash effect. Culture and social factors, no surprises here. We are at the DevRel Asia conference, so everyone would understand the kind of societies that we grew up in, the kind of cultural norms that we all had in our countries back. So there are factors which have kind of defined the role and I would say like the stereotype around how things should be and what people should be doing. So those are the factors as well that impact on kind of impact or I would say pull people back to practice DEI and to come up things do things confidently. Stereotype threats, as you might know, and I have also observed this and at a personal level, is that if you have if someone has a stereotype for you, you will be extra conscious that your action might confirm that stereotype, and in the process of being the extra conscious, you do mistakes. So those are the threats as well, which come up as challenges. Imposter syndrome, I'm not talking about all of the topics are only related to the women, but equally applies to underrepresented groups, underrepresented companies, underrepresented countries, or people speaking under, like people from underrepresented language. So basically, you will feel that you're not good enough to be here, even though you are there speaking at a conference, even though you are there working at a company, you cleared the interviews, you just feel that it's my luck, but I don't belong here yet. And you just have that pressure building up on you. And the last one is unconscious bias. Again, no surprises here. Everyone has biases, and but this is a strong factor that kind of I would say that kind of make the life of the underrepresented groups of people difficult to give their best, right, which is not we want. So these are the challenges. Think about the challenges that you have experienced, or you have seen people experience this, feel free to put it over the chat or reach out to me. I would love to hear your experiences. Now you know the definitions, you know the challenges. Let's go into how this thing relates with DevRel. So while I was working at Google in the developer relations team, I could resonate with a lot of things and the need of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we ran a series of initiatives to basically help communities come up and progress even in a better way, work in a even in a better harmony. And we saw the results. So I strongly believe that we as a DevRel have a lot of things to do. So why do we need it? So as you know, um, diversity numbers in technological sector is quite low as compared to other sectors, and developer relations reflects the technological sector. So that is like a need of the hour, I would say. We could also think from a perspective that DevRel, as DevRel, we reach out to masses, one to few to many, right? So we have a possibility, or we have a capability that if we manage to make a few people practice diversity, equity, and inclusion, ultimately we'll be reaching out to millions of masses, and we'll be able to manage this kind of a positive change management and make everyone work in a harmonical way. So our scale gives us the reason to focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, I would say. Another thing that we see a lot in practicing developer relations is that we have a lot of role models, people who go and speak at conferences, people who write the blog, and they kind of walk the talk, because a lot of people, a lot of developers who are evolving in this journey follow them, respect them, value them. So we also have a leeway of relying on such people. And if we manage, or if these people manage to basically champion DEI in whatever things they do, they'll be able to bring it to the masses. And overall, we are in the technological sector where we make tech products, and our products are built for everyone. Our products are global. Our products are used by a set of consumers which are quite diverse, right? You would all agree. So to make diverse products, we want the developers to be diverse as well, and to be understanding and valuing diversity, equity, and inclusion. So this is where we come into the picture on why do we need it. Quickly going to the 5 things you can do. Um, I'm sure it's going to be quite interesting for you. This could be applicable while you are running, let's say, programs as a developer relations community manager, program manager, or while you are running your own community as a organizer, or while you are organizing your conference, or hosting events, whatever you can think about under the sun in the DevRel. These are the things that you could practice. First thing, be aware of your biases and blind spots. And how you can do it is by using this framework: name it, notice it, point it out. Name it. When you meet someone, make the note of your first impression of them, and remember it. Notice it. While you're watching YouTube, Netflix, or anything, notice and observe what are the stereotypes are there for the kind of person you met last day, and notice and observe and become aware, right? And then point it out. So whenever you come up in conversation, point it out that, oh, this is something which I was not aware about, but now I know. And this is the bias, but I think we should put it this way, right? So this is a practice that you could do in your own day-to-day life. Like, be aware what you are more biased about and what are your blind spots. Next up, ensure diverse representation. Um, Actively call out for diverse candidates, whether it is on your jobs or communities or the conferences. A lot of times, people make a lot of marketing effort, do a lot of social media marketing, and do not end up with diverse candidates. And they would say, but we did not get applications. What should we do? So as I said in equity, explaining the definitions before, we need to kind of provide additional support to the people to kind of meet the bar who are not yet there. So keeping the same treatment for everyone, just a single application form is not going to work. Reach out to the communities who actively work with such underrepresented groups, minority groups, and tell them that we need your speakers. If you need, add more coaching sessions for them, more briefing sessions for them, but actively flood the pipeline. And there's a very interesting thing comes here. A lot of people come and ask me that should we lower the bar for it? So it's not about lowering the bar, it's about making the support structure and a system so that they could participate along in the whole thing. So I'm not saying that you have a reservation quota that 40% of our speakers are going to be female. Rather, you make sure that you have four, like let's say out of 100, you will have 40 applications from female, right? So if you have a pipeline which is flooded with more diverse application, then it's okay to apply the same rule for selection and you will end up with a good diverse representation. So make sure, I'm not telling about lowering the bar, but it's making sure that you are aware about each and every diverse group or set of people. Third thing, communication. Be aware and mindful. I have learned these things over last couple of months, and I am super mindful of these things. These are the kind of things we use in day-to-day life, but we do not realize. Um, Hi folks instead of hi guys, person hours instead of man hours, humanity instead of mankind, right? We don't realize how these things has been so much ingrained in our culture that we are not including a specific gender in the communication. So be aware of the communication, microaggressions, small things that you tell someone, which is like a mosquito bite. You don't realize, but it kind of pinches them. So be an active listener if someone comes to you and say that they did not like it. And if you feel something like that, go and explain someone. So that's kind of work it out. The fourth one is ensure inclusive accommodations. I would say anything that you are organizing, make sure everything is representative of attracting a diverse pool of candidates. And you can make it happen by just having make sure that you have different kind of people on the poster, or you have different pricing structure for people who cannot afford. Not everyone has to afford, and a lot of conference do this these days. Rotate the housework. I see this a lot in Gojek, where we have people taking responsibility of writing the meeting notes, writing the updates, and we basically rotate it among ourselves. And not anyone has to volunteer, but rotate so that everyone gets to do. Because in volunteering, again, the underrepresented group might take a lead that I will do it. And the last one is be an ally. Um, these are some important ways to be an ally to someone from an underrepresented group. Give them the full attention. Um, don't interrupt. Attribute and echo to what they are saying. Try to learn their language. Try to learn about their culture. That's the first step. Like, do no harm, support with these things. Second is advocate in small ways, like you can intervene in a meeting and tell someone that, hey, this is not right, or hey, let this person speak, right? Small things that you could do and change a life, which is basically mentoring someone for a long time, sponsoring someone, and basically helping them to grow in their career. So these are the quick 5 things. As you could see, I would love to see and hear if you can commit to one action today. Be aware of your biases, ensure diverse representation, communicate effectively, ensure inclusive accommodation, and be an ally. If you are planning to practice any of them, or if you're already practicing, let us know through the chat box. And yeah, I would love to keep that as a takeaway from this session. And lastly, I would just kind of mention few initiatives that I'm personally quite inspired by, and I recommend it to people, anyone who wants to learn about diversity, equity, inclusion in a fun way, or teach someone about it. So there's this I'm Remarkable workshop from Google. Um, there is Managing Bias training by Facebook. There's a 50 ways to fight bias workshop by LinkedIn. So go ahead and just try it out. That's it from my side, folks. It's been a great experience speaking at DevRel Asia. Thank you so much for listening. Hoping to carry forward the discussions over the chat, Twitter, or any social media platform that you prefer. And yes, thank you so much once again.
Thank you so much for your talk, Vivi. It was really impressive. So we got some questions that we want to cover. So the first question is, how do you work with people with imposter syndrome?
Um, Great question, and I do come across a lot of people who face the imposter syndrome. Even I do the same sometimes. So what I do is I try to make them realize on what they are capable of. I try to make them aware of what are the things that they have achieved and what impact has their work derived in their life, in their work, or anything. And that works out for me to some extent. That when they see that they've achieved so many things because of their skill sets, they will have a little bit peak in confidence. But you have to continuously doing it. It's not just a one-off thing.
Thank you. And the second question we got is, can you share some go-to references, books, speaker, influencer articles that inspired you the most in building diversity and inclusion?
That's a great question. Um, I I read less, so I would suggest people. I do read a few articles that I come across, like McKinsey has good surveys. BCG also has good reports. So I love to read the reports. Other than that, I am reading this book right now, which is Why Do Women Still Not Get a Corner Office? So, a corner office is related with the C-level position, right? So, that's one book that I'm reading currently. And it talks about a lot of the mistakes. I think it's like mistakes women do because of which they are still not getting corner office. Something like that is the book's name. That's a good book. Helped me realize a lot of things. Other than that, I follow a lot of people who are strong diversity, equity, inclusion advocates. One of them is Natalie Villalobos, with whom I used to work at Google on the Women Tech Makers program. She's a great inspiration. Another one is my own head of program management at Gojek. She's Brandy. She is a strong DEI advocate. So I am in touch with these people and they inspire me a lot.
Thank you. So you raised the example of women tech makers. Also, any other like organization showcase that you are like looking at?
Sorry,
Oh,
I didn't get the question. Can you repeat?
okay. So any other like organization showcase that you are looking at for DMI?
Organization, as in the communities you are talking about?
Yeah, like the community showcase.
Community showcase. So
Yes.
I work with a lot of DEI communities.
Mhm.
To name a few, I used to work with the women tech makers, as you know, then the lean in community while I was back in Bangalore, India. So I worked with them. I work with a couple of communities here in Singapore, which are for non-profit and which enables the domestic helpers in Singapore to basically learn technology. And then I kind of mentor in the Women Developer Academy by Google. So I would say these are all the places where I get inputs around DEI, and I also get to listen a lot of experiences by which I learn.
Great, thank you. And one more question to go. So, any tips on how to convince internal stakeholders to invest in diversity and inclusion program?
Great question. I would say this is something that I've done a bit research on. Tips I would give is it's diversity, equity, inclusion is like a bottom up and top down. It has to be both the ways. So I would say look out for champions who are not your direct stakeholders, but leaders in your company who are strong supporters of DEI. They could be your support system and they could vouch for the importance of DEI. So look out for those role models in leadership. Build a business case out of why do we need DEI, because ultimately you have to show a business result to the company to invest in such initiatives. So if it's a large scale initiative, try to build the business case and show what value you will bring. And the third thing is from the bottom up, take the people around you who are interested with you, and then say that you are representing these many people. And uh, this could be through, let's say you start a Slack thread, or you have a Slack channel of 20 people, and then you discuss things with these people who are interested. Then when you go to convince stakeholders, you could say that I have 20 more people with me who are interested in this topic, and we can't wait to start with it. So as I said, like, find out a leadership champion, build a business case, and bottom up, get a group of people who are equally interested and passionate about this topic. Those are some ways that I have so far come across.
Thanks, good to hear that. So, again, thank you so much for joining us today. It was an amazing session.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting, and thank you so much for hosting such a sweet conference.